Are you ready to learn about the property market? Then you're in the right place. This is Everything Property by Pivotal Homes, where we connect Australia's best developers, agents, home buyer specialists, wealth creation experts, and property advisors to the people of Australia. Broadcasted from Whitehorse Studios on the Gold Coast. And now, here are your hosts, Hayden Ashton and Tom Egan.
G'day listeners and viewers right across Australia. Welcome to Everything Property, where we connect Australia's best developers, agents, first home buyer specialists, wealth creation experts and all-round property advisors to the people of Australia. Now, today's guest has been researching property cycles since 2003 and he's been identifying key growth opportunities in the Australian residential property market and assisting people invest in those opportunities as a way to reduce debt, plan for retirement and ultimately achieve financial freedom. He comes from a family heavily involved in the property industry and has lived and breathed real estate his whole life. Having had exposure to multiple property markets within Australia, he has an in-depth understanding of the broader national market. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Michael Pell, CEO, founder, Independent Property Planners Australia. How are you, mate?
Hayden, wow. Thank you for that. Best intro I've ever had, mate. But excited to be here with you and Tommy today.
Mate,
Thanks for coming, mate.
Yeah, really appreciate you coming on. As I mentioned in there, a wealth of knowledge. Been doing this in 2003, right across Australia, multiple markets.
Yep.
So obviously we're based in Queensland, but going to be able to provide a greater understanding of, I suppose, the national
Yes.
Market at the moment. But mate, before we get into that, I'd like to know a little bit, and I always do this for the people watching at home, a little bit of your personal story, how you came into property. I made a few little mentions in there and what you're doing now.
Yeah, look, first got my real estate ticket when I was 19.
Right.
Started door knocking for the old man's business, Tom Pell Real Estate, back in Cottesloe.
Right.
Gee, that was tough. I don't even think
That's Perth.
I might have had a mobile phone in my pocket. I might not have. But if we take it back, what would that have been? 1998. So then got the ticket. Didn't have a huge amount of success as a 19-year-old. I was playing footy and I wasn't really interested in door knocking. So when I finished playing footy for Claremont and Swan Districts in the Waffle, I actually got a job as a radio announcer.
Oh, right. There you go.
I did that for 3 years in Bunbury, Headland and Karratha. That's why being back in the studio today is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
But and then officially sort of kicked it off, as you say, 2003 with Home Buyers Centre, part of the Dale Alcott Group over in WA. The biggest, well, they rotate with Metricon and BGC as one of the top three largest building companies in Australia. So I was really, really lucky to get an opportunity with Dale Alcott and the team there at Home Buyers Centre.
How long were you there for, mate?
I was there from 2003 to 2006.
Yeah, right, okay.
And that was a really good grounding for me in the house and land package space. Obviously, you know, the old Home Buyers Centre, I think they're the pioneers of it. Finance, land, house. You know, we weren't really selling houses, although we were. It was more about the finance. It was, hey, John and Mary, before we get excited about this house design, before we get excited, I know you want to live on the beach, but, you know, before we get excited about the block, let's just take a step back and sit down and assess your finance situation. So that, I was so lucky to have 3 or 4 years there where I got a really good understanding of the finances, albeit I'm not a finance broker, but I have a pretty good idea of how to assess someone. And so that set us up. And we had some really successful years there. I was lucky in Bunbury, down at Del Yellup was the estate. It was booming down there. And we were lucky to be selling sort of 10, 15, 20 homes a month, and not just myself, other consultants as well. And Home Buyers Centre was selling 100 a month.
Yeah, right. So this is in Perth, pre-GFC.
It was busy.
Yeah,
and
right.
So it was an amazing grounding. It was almost too good to be true.
Yeah.
And all we knew back then was that things were booming.
Yeah.
But we've definitely got our head pulled in a few years later, and we understand that, you know, that it's cyclical. So as a 23, 4, 5-year-old going through that, we had some fun times and learnt a lot from that process. And it's sort of led us to where we are now with my own business and now a bit older at 41. But I'm really thankful to have been through the highs and lows and the ups and downs of those few. Well, those couple of decades there, really, almost now.
Yeah.
Getting old.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, look at, man. I would have thought 41. Mate. I wouldn't have thought that.
Good head for radio. I've got a good head for podcasts.
It's a shame this one's filmed.
It's filmed, is it? Turn off the camera. Put it on you, Hayden.
Mate, that's a really, really good point because, as you mentioned, it's going through tough times, whether it be business or personal, gives you an appreciation for the good times.
Yes.
You know, so having, you know, I went through it when I first came to the industry as well, where it was just really, it was in the middle of the Asian, Chinese offshore purchasing. So it was just deals were coming in, unconditional deals were coming in,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking like this property thing is easy.
You think it's normal.
Yeah, that's right. Like, how good is this,
You know?
right?
Yeah.
And then, things like the Royal Commission or election or COVID-19 come up, and whereby you realise that it's not happy days forever, and you've got to really establish yourself as an authority or really improve your knowledge so that when the times are lean or times are tougher, people still recognise you as the person to go to navigate and assist them through that time. So obviously that's what you're doing.
Yeah, well, look, all the cash we made in 03, 04, 05, 06, we lost it in 07,
Yeah,
08.
yeah, that's right.
Through some bad decisions and thinking that, all you knew was a boom as a 23, 4, 5-year-old. But hey.
You think it's never going to run out.
Yeah,
the money's just going to keep coming.
Tommy, exactly.
We can, make higher risk investments. Money's always just going to be there. We're pulling it off the tree at the moment.
Whatever we touched turned to gold, but we got our wings clipped and our head pulled back in 07 or 08. And I think that was actually good. Looking back now, albeit it was very tough at the time, looking back now, it's exactly what needed to happen. And as you say, it brought us back and it grounded us. And I'm really fortunate now to, as I say, 41, I've been doing this now for half my life. And so the mistakes I've made in the past, plus the good decisions I've made in the past, I can kind of formulate all that and put all that together, in what we do now with the own business. And I love helping first home buyers. I love helping investors of all ages, but especially when I get clients in the 20s and 30s, I say, hey guys, this is so exciting. Here's the roadmap of where to go, and here's the spots not to go. It's almost like you're going on a scenic tour, taking photos. Right. Don't go too close to the cliff because you'll fall off. Yeah. I did. Make sure you don't.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Really blessed now. And like I said, I think off air earlier to you guys, I'm 41, but I really feel like I'm just starting. I've got so much energy and I'm really excited, and just moved up to Brisbane 2 months ago here with a wife and the 8.5-month-old, and we're pumped to be here.
Yeah. Mate, awesome. Independent Property Planners Australia.
It's a long name, I know, but there was a fair bit of thought that went into it.
Yeah, okay. Mate, tell us about what the ethos, the goal, the reason behind starting that organisation, how long you've been around for.
Yeah, so to May 2016, we coined the name, created the company. A lot of names. I think there was a few names before. I can't remember, that were like taken or whatever. And I was sitting in Sydney down in Chinatown. I remember, and I just wrote down. I wrote down the word independent, and I was like, I think people like the fact that you're not necessarily, biased, and you're not. I'm not working for a developer or a specific builder like I have done in the past. So I thought, hey, I'm going out by myself now. We are independent. I don't have to build with this builder. I don't have to sell this property. So independent, and then obviously property, and then planners. So like it shows that the depth of the planning that we put into it, and then basically, if people do want a financial plan attached to that, our financial planning team are there for that. So, and then Australia is, I never really wanted to be a real estate agent in a certain area. My dad was, but I thought to myself, do I just want to be stuck? You know how that you've got to become that local area agent, and you're the specialist.
You're on the bus stops.
I had my name. I had all that. Until I'd go out at night and have too many drinks, and they go, "You the guy on the bus stop?"
That's right.
Probably shouldn't be doing drugs going to the front bar.
You're passed out up against your own sign.
That's right. That all happened, but I was like, I want to create a company, obviously where I can help people and use my knowledge, but I really want to be able to be based anywhere in Australia, and I think. I'm fortunate now. The last couple of years, it's beautiful. It's like I said to the wife 3 months ago, let's move to Brisbane. We'd already floated the idea, but I suppose the business now, we could move anywhere, and I'm pretty blessed that I don't have to be in a certain city, and so we can move anywhere. And it is Australia with a strong focus, obviously, on Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, and WA. That's where I hold my real estate licenses, and that's where we do obviously all of our projects and all of our deals. So. Investors and first home buyers, but predominantly investors. But it's all really the same, really, if you think about it. You're still to be making money from the investment, whether you're an investor or a first home buyer, right? Yeah.
And the first home buyer gets it right, they're coming back to make their investments.
That's right, exactly.
And a lot of them want that. I guess they're not maximised. A lot of people have switched on, where I think back in the day, a lot of people were always overextending. Where I think now they realise, now that we actually go and see a professional, we don't have to spend our maximum amount of 600. Spend 450.
Yeah, leave a buffer.
Leave a buffer, and you're on a roadmap, and a couple of, you can show them those opportunities. And I think a lot more younger people are more savvy about that now.
You are right, Tom. And I think the number one thing that I say with the first home buyers, and I mean this in the best possible way, is often I've got to realign their expectation. We all want to live in Brighton in Victoria, or in Bondi in Sydney, or in New Farm in Brisbane, or on the water in the Gold Coast. But the reality of it is, unless we're getting $1 million from grandma, our first home is not going to be our dream home. It's not going to be our dream location.
Yeah.
It's going to be a stepping stone and an entry point where you can get in, use whatever grants are there for you. If there's no stamp duty as well, and use that $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 worth of grants to get in, plus your own deposit, whatever you've got. Always remembering your first home's your hardest.
That's right.
Get in, pay it down if you can, and then in 5 or 7 years with the equity that you've got, you might choose to move, you might choose to turn that into an investment property, but then go up the ladder. You ask any wealthy person today, where did they buy their first home? It was not in their dream location.
And that's what I think that as a society now, people are a little bit too, I suppose they feel entitled to have that forever home early on. You know, if you look back at, I'm sure you did, and my parents did and whatnot, your first homes are, you know, old prawn shacks or, you know, old dives.
It's true.
But people in today's society sort of want to have that
It's the quick
realistic
fix.
dream, I think maybe driven by the look or the what it portrays on social media. You know, I don't want to put my
instant
house up.
gratification
Correct.
is a thing that
That's
I think
right.
we're all dealing with now,
Yeah.
especially the younger kids.
It's the 25 grand came out. It's like, let's spec up the home. Let's not take any part of the mortgage off. Let's just put 25 grand of extras into the home that you're not going to get back.
Yeah, that's right. And so
that's that instant, again, gratification.
it's
every time.
and because everything's available almost now on our mobile phone, we can get a feed, a date, a mate. What else? We can get anything from our mobile phone.
They order everything online to the house.
You can
TV,
There's
anything.
even groups, a mate of mine's doing it online. He's got online, buying a house just online. You don't even see anyone. Like, I don't know. I'm a bit old-fashioned with property. I still feel it's still a slow burn. It's not a quick fix. There's not instant gratification. Like you say, it is the prawn shack. My first house was in Bustleton, down in regional WA. Did well out of that. But it was you've just got to take. It's a slow, long game with property. Yeah. And I think that's what people got to understand. It's not instant gratification.
Yeah, I think some clients too, when they purchase, I think some of them come from, you know, a background where none of the family have property. They go to buy the home, they really think that this is the only home they're going to have.
Yes.
Like, you know, I got a 30-year loan.
Yes.
I'm going to have this house for 50 years. I'll pay the loan off in 30.
No one ever does.
No one ever. So it's then educating them. I think they can't believe, one, they're going to get a home when you first meet with them. Two, it's achievable. And they're like, well, this is just going to be the home we keep, so let's spend that extra as well.
Yeah.
But it's
no.
You meet with them sometimes and just like, this is, you've got literally 10 years will go by, you won't be here.
Yeah, you've got to have that investor mindset on, even as a first home buyer.
Understanding the
100%.
power of property, isn't it?
Yes.
That's what they don't. As soon as you get, no matter what it is, you get on the ladder.
Get on the
Let's
ladder.
just say the property doesn't go up in value. It just doesn't even go up in value. It's still a good asset to have.
Well, you're paying it down.
That's
And
correct.
You know what I say the best thing about property? I know with my properties, I'm not a great saver.
No.
But what I definitely do is make my mortgage repayments on my principal and interest for my properties every month.
Yeah.
But would I necessarily save that $3 or $4 or $5 grand a month?
No.
Probably not. Maybe not. If I didn't have any properties, would I spend it? Potentially. So you are right, Hayden, is buying a property is that forced saving. Assume it doesn't go up. Pay it down and you're still going to have equity in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, that's right.
The reality of it is going to go up.
Yeah, correct.
9 times out of 10.
Yep.
And we'll talk about properties. I think you've got the notes there, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right.
Not all properties go up, and we'll talk about that shortly. But most of the time, you're buying a bit of dirt in a good area, close to infrastructure and all that. It is going to go up over time.
Yeah, with the help of a team that knows what they're talking
That's
about.
right. Yeah.
Mate, you've recently, you mentioned it, moved down to God's country, Queensland.
Yes, love it here. Yes.
Mate, how's that transition been? We spoke about it off air. You know, I always find it a rude awakening when I go to Sydney in particular. And I'm just greeted almost by a trumpeting sound of car horns, no matter where I am.
That was a great analogy you made. I think we last caught up at our office in Edgecliff.
Yeah.
And I remember you sitting in the boardroom, and behind you on New South Head Road is the car just whizzing past. And I think you said, Hayden, it was like something that I'd been thinking for a long time. You said, I just noticed people in Sydney, they just bip their horn just at any opportunity for basically the smallest thing.
Yeah.
And it is so true. I love Sydney. We had a beautiful 4.5 years there. We've got lots of great friends there. But gee, the change of pace up here is good. And I tell you what, I don't think I've even been bipped at. And I reckon I've missed a green once till it had to go red and then green again. And no one still bipped me. But gee, I tell you what, on New South Head Road or Oxford Street in Sydney, they are quick to bip. Don't worry about that.
That's right. I mean, even run up someone's ass or whatever, it still doesn't get doesn't get any aggro. It's just, that's right, mate. Sorry, we'll work that out. Let's get to the side
Change
here.
details. Mate.
Yeah.
But mate, you've been in Sydney, as you mentioned, 4.5 years. You're now in Brisbane, obviously on the West Coast as well. So having that, I mean, there's one thing understanding the property cycles and the infrastructure and reading it from a piece of paper, but living and breathing it and seeing it firsthand in those locations gives you a greater understanding, I'd imagine, to what's actually on the ground and kicking dirt around in those areas.
Definitely. I mean, lucky enough to grow up in WA, in Perth, down Cottesloe Way, and what a great part of the world that is. But I suppose there's a whole lot happening on the east side, so the opportunity to move to Sydney to launch the business 4.5 years ago, and then here. And I feel like that's our territory. In real estate you have a territory, and for most agents they're doing local little suburbs. For us now, and for me now, having lived in 3 of those major cities, Melbourne I know like the back of my hand because I'm mad AFL MCC member, go every year.
Yeah, right.
So I'm always down.
You're on the grand final at the Gabba this year, mate?
I've got the feelers out now for tickets. If anyone listening's got any ticket contacts, get in touch. But
you'll have all the builders calling you.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I'll give you guys first opportunity.
Yeah, that's right.
In the pivotal box. The pivotal home box live from the Gabba.
That's right.
So look, I already knew Brisbane quite well from on the map and selling it out of Sydney. But to move here now and really get an understanding. Sydney got a good understanding. I spent a lot of time in the western suburbs and then even south, down to Wollongong, up to Newcastle, everywhere in between. As I said, no Melbourne, well, and then Perth. I think I've got a pretty good understanding of the major Australian markets, the 4 major capital cities and a lot of the regional areas to be able to sit with people and say, hey, well, what is the best that you can do for your $400, $500, $600, $700,000 budget? And that's really what I do every time I sit down with people. And you've got the notes there, what makes IPPA different. Maybe we can jump to that quickly now, is I think that I want to steer clear of my competition, and a lot of my competition, that's a sausage factory. So, sorry, you said you're a vegetarian, you don't like pickles, but there's a Big Mac.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, I heard what you said, but that's all we do. We only do Big Macs, I'd like to make you a salad roll without the meat and the pickles if that's what you ask for. And I think that's what we're doing with our and sometimes I'm ringing Joey from your group and saying, hey mate, I've got this odd block here and it's hard to build on, but I'll always do my best to get my clients into what they want given their budget, and it won't always be the sausage factory block of land in Ipswich or Logan or Caboolture.
Deliver the outcome that
with all due respect to those areas.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, everyone can access those house and land packages. I like to provide something different, something bespoke where I can. It went to
it's going to be a greater return for the client.
Well, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Especially the owner occupiers now, dealing with a lot of them, not necessarily first homers, a lot of first homers, but just the ones wanting to get the $25,000 grant. Their kids are in certain catchment zones in certain areas, so it's not an option for me to try and realign their expectation and say, I'm sorry.
We're moving to
You're going, that's not an option for everyone. So it is still a happy medium. They're probably not getting exactly what they want because of various reasons, site costs, budget, odd block, orphan block, we don't know what's under. And then, so it's me really marrying that up and being able to sort of help them through that process. So, the individual basically approach that we go about it is I'm really happy to find a block that no one else is chasing.
Yeah, so it's that really, from what you're saying, that really holding their hand experience. What do you want? The outcome you want it to achieve, either from an owner-occupier or an investor standpoint.
Yep, it is.
And so if the owner-occupier, we'll try our best to try and get it what you want.
Yep.
But we'll be realistic and provide feedback along the way.
That's right.
For an investor, it's more so about what it is you want to achieve.
That's right. Your goals.
And then I'll try and come up with the plan to meet those goals, right?
That's right. That's right. We're lucky in Sydney. One of my clients there, Dean and Eileen, she's just retired, and I met her 5 years ago. They had one property, the one they're living in Warrington Downs.
Yep.
And we're lucky enough, we added 4 properties to their portfolio.
5 years.
2 negatively geared, 2 positively geared. And one of those was in their super fund, and she's now retired with the cash flow from the properties and the one that is in our super fund. So for me, the business is not even 5 years old. It's coming up in May. That was like a heartwarming moment. We took them all out to lunch before we left Sydney. And she goes, Michael, with your help. And I said, well, it's more you, Eileen, but we've been there to assist. She said, I'm retiring, and she had a tear in her eye. Wow. So that for me is like, wow, that's what we're here for.
And so that obviously drives, as you mentioned, your enthusiasm to get up out of bed every morning, and you remember the Eileens, and I'm sure there's many people that are along that journey as well to really give you.
And that's why I say, like, I've got a spring in my step every day to do this. Every day's different. Every package is different. Different builders, different blocks, and different scenarios, and that's why I love it. So I feel like I'm just starting my career, another 30 years ahead of us.
5 years getting the foundations right.
That's right, Tom. Yeah. That's right. I feel like we're just going to go to the next level now, and we've got a lot of stories with the business that people have been very, very happy. But with the help of good builders like you guys, it makes a difference, because your product reflects on what we've done with our client. And if the build's no good, the first person they come back to is not the builder, is back to us.
Absolutely. Yep. Now, mate, the property cycles.
Yes.
There was a quote on your website that I researched about that Warren Buffett said. I really thought I'd bring it up because I actually hadn't heard it, but the wealth is the transfer of money from the impatient to the patient.
Yep.
Very relevant quote given the time that we're in at the moment too, with in relation to what's going on in the world.
Yep.
Obviously, you've been researching property cycles that I mentioned in the bio since 2003.
Yep.
What are some of the indicators that you're looking for when you're looking for your investors as to identifying the right time to buy? Because my ethos and my, what I go off is you don't wait to buy real estate, you buy real estate and wait. But obviously there's a fine art to it. I'm not an investment property specialist. I don't claim to be. But what are you looking for to identify the appropriate market at the right time and moving in and out of markets? Like you don't want to be putting someone in Perth, for example, in 2007 when it was going through a bust, or maybe you do. Tell us.
Yeah, no, look, it's interesting. And I think when times are down, and obviously everyone quotes Warren Buffett and we've heard it over and over, but it's, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. And right now, people are fearful through COVID, aren't they? And maybe a lot of people aren't buying for that reason. But I think it's about identifying, going back to my original point, is, okay, first thing, property's a long-term game. This is not a quick fix, buy these shares, buy this property, you're going to be 200 grand up in 2 years. It's a long-term game, but I think if we understand the markets, and we've got 4 key pillars that we stick to here at IPP Australia, which is what we look for. So economic growth, population growth, the demographics of the area, who's living there, why are they there, how long are they going to be there for, how much are they earning, and can their incomes keep increasing? That's really important. Yeah. And then obviously infrastructure projects, so new train lines, shops, hospitals, schools. They're the 4 key pillars that we look for when we're helping anyone, but predominantly obviously for investors, because there's more emotion involved, as we know, for a first home buyer. So I think if we stick to those things, fortunately for us, the clients we've helped in the last 4.5 years are all much better off having invested in property and having that long-term view of it.
And what I've noticed is that the people who are maybe fearful, come March, or back in March, everyone was quite scared. What the hell does this whole virus thing mean? Men have been dealing with the man flu for years, so I don't know what everyone's complaining about.
That's true.
That's
exactly.
Right. We get this every year,
Yeah, correct.
The cold sweats, the fever. I've been there before.
Yeah. Sometimes that's not from the flu, man.
That's right. But I've lost my train of thought. What was I talking about?
COVID.
Oh, COVID. Yeah. So buyer's mindset.
Yes.
So March, everyone was fearful. Everyone sort of went on a little bit of a backtrack and just sort of paused major decisions in their life. But I've noticed in particular with the way property has failed to drop or crash through the floor like News Corp and all these courier mails were predicting, and we've seen the fluctuations of the share market up and down, and down, and then up a little bit. Australians' love affair with property just continues. So I'm starting to see on the back of obviously the stimulus with the home builder and whatnot, with the massive wave of owner-occupiers that are entering the market, the investors now coming back and wanting a piece of that action because they've seen that, this isn't, things aren't falling apart. The world as we know it isn't falling apart. My property is still worth the same or maybe a little bit less, but it's definitely not 20 or 30% drop that
Definitely.
that everyone was telling me originally.
Definitely. Some of the savvy investors are coming back into the market now. I'm helping a lady now who's looking for a duplex. She works for PwC, one of the largest accounting firms in the world. You think she's going to be buying if it's not the right time to buy? I mean, and so, yeah, look, we get it. I get it that Uncle Bob says not to buy during COVID. And I had a situation with a young first home buyer recently who was so excited to buy his mum and dad talked him out of it. His mum and dad said no. But I said to him, with all due respect, your dad's a doctor and your mum was in admin and they're beautiful people. I get that. But they've only bought one property in their life and they're 60. So that's like me
telling you not to get that mole checked.
That's like me going to the dentist and going, "G'day, mate, how are you? Oh, yeah, just 3 fillings up the back left, thanks, mate." You don't go to the dentist and tell him what's wrong with your teeth. But like, I just don't understand it sometimes. It's like everyone's always got an opinion on property. Everyone knows where to buy. But do we?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
And it comes down to a lot of it is frustrating because I see it a lot. It's that analysis paralysis, the procrastination, and it costs people good opportunities.
More is lost with indecision than wrong decision.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And a lot of the time too, they hear horror stories about building a home. It's like if you break it down, what went wrong with the cousin at the barbecue that they were telling don't build.
Yeah,
they didn't start building for 6 months. It's like the block wasn't registered.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was it. Nothing to do with building a house. It's
but with all due respect, there's horror stories now on the highways.
Yeah.
But when I drove down today from Brisbane, I didn't have a bottle of vodka beforehand.
That's right.
I actually put my belt on. I stopped at the stoplights and the red lights. Maybe a bit longer than it could be. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's horror stories with everything.
Everything, absolutely.
But those things seem to influence so many people.
Yeah.
But 98% of the time, people do well from investing in property. And if you look at where the wealth in the world is, boys, you know where it is.
Yeah.
We know that the foundations of all wealth in the world is in property.
Yeah.
Yes, there's some in shares and tech and all that, but the wealthiest people in the world have massive property portfolios.
And you look at and for people watching at home, and we've seen that the Australian federal government just simply will not allow the property market to crumble because it holds, I think, 52 or over 0.5% of Australia's wealth.
And isn't the construction / property industry is like 10%
largest
of the economy?
Correct. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
So with
I think
that,
it's more than that. I think it's like up to 15. Something crazy. Yeah.
If you include real estate agents and all that, so it's a huge part.
and then we've seen that the government just simply won't let it fall.
No.
So
I've seen it over and over and over. How many times do people need to keep seeing it?
Correct.
They're going to let another 20 years go and not buy anything.
Correct. Yeah, exactly right.
But you know what? Some people, I've had to come to the conclusion, boys, after nearly 20 years in the game, some people can't be helped.
You can't help everyone.
It's the old, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You can't force it. And recently I had this with a client and I'd given them all the information. I tried my hardest and done everything I could to explain it to them. And then in the end, I just actually said, John and Mary, I'm going to leave it with you. I'm not actually sure that we can help you. Guess what happened? 4 days later, guess who rang? John. Oh, we've had to think about it. We want to come, and that's not the sales tactic to take away. But it kind of is just, hey, I've done everything we could possibly do.
You can't flog a dead horse.
I can't do any more. Took it away, inverted commas, like I can't help you. And then it's that human psychology. We want what we can't have, and back they come.
Yeah.
And so, mate, with relation to the property markets, you mentioned the quite an in-depth sort of criteria.
Yes.
Or broad, but inside of each one of those.
That's the macro.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of individual things that you're looking at. So
yeah. Well, the economic growth, Hayden, I mean, you've got to be going into an area where the economy's growing, I believe. Like, new shops, new businesses. It's the reverse of everything being for lease. Yeah. Which unfortunately is happening now through COVID in certain parts of Australia. But we go back to a normal market, and we will get back to normal, is that our new businesses growing, is there new jobs being created in that area? That's really, really important. The next one, if you want to go into the four macros, is the demographics. So, like, who's living in the area? Is there high unemployment? What salaries are they on? Are they on 40, 50, 60 and that's capped? Or are they on 70, 80, 90, 100 with a view of that increasing?
What I really love when I purchase mine, I look at the incomes, the median incomes, because if on average, Australians spend 30% of
Yes.
their wage on housing.
Yes.
So I look whereby, okay, say my rent's $400 right now, and if the tenant profile or the population profile is earning $2,000 a week, there's immediate potential for uplift in terms of your rental yield.
Yes.
So that's what I look for, and that's obviously part of your criteria.
And that, I mean, is where in tough times you're still going to have tenants.
Correct.
Like one of my wife and I's properties, or we've actually got a dual key in Cottesloe in WA. My mum and sister live out the back in the granny flat that we built, the little 2x2, and then we've rented the front one. But I was thinking through COVID, oh gosh, are we going to be? This is back in March. Well, as a landlord, you've got to be understanding. Is he going to keep renting? But we found through the property manager, he's got a job with one of the big accounting firms in Perth, and the rent wasn't a drama. So I suppose what I'm getting at there as an investor and who you're renting it to as well is really important that they're not going to be subject to huge fluctuations when the market does go down and hit a COVID. They're not going to necessarily lose their job because then, unfortunately for you as an investor, if the rent stops, the music stops.
Yeah.
It's a big problem.
And it's a lot of that time, it's not noticed until something like this happens, the importance of the research that someone like yourself and your team do. Because a lot of people...
In the good times, it's fine.
Correct, exactly right. Australians tend to have a love affair with property. We're so proud. Everyone's an expert in the
Everyone's an
Australian.
expert.
So we have this mindset of like, I'm going to do it myself. But those are the people now, unfortunately, I dare say, would be having these issues with relation to they haven't done the in-depth nitty-gritty. They've bought somewhere because they've always liked the area and, they just
they're
think
emotionally attached.
Exactly. There's a good cafe there that sells them their eggs perfectly poached or
Uncle
whatever.
John said to buy there too.
That's right.
He's been a mechanic for 50 years. Though.
That's right.
He knows.
But those
He
are the
still
people.
rents.
That's right. That's right.
But those people are the ones now, I dare say, would be the ones that haven't done the research and now getting caught out on so many different areas.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And it's so important. And you're right, everyone's got an opinion. Obviously, you've got to talk to a property group or a trusted advisor that you trust. And I think that's a huge part of what we do with our clients is build that trust. You don't necessarily want to rely on one opinion, but so many people rely, unfortunately, and with all due respect to our mums and dads, and I don't know if you follow Gary Vee at all, but I follow him religiously, and how mums and dads tell their kids what to do for their career.
Yeah.
I won't swear, but if you understand what I'm saying, it's a similar thing. It's like mum and dad. How can you tell me about where I'm going to be with my career? How can you tell me about where to invest? You don't know. You don't know. But,
exactly.
But you care, and we get that, and we love you, and we know that you're doing it from good intentions, but you're actually inhibiting me as a 25-year-old first home buyer who wants to get ahead because of your own preconceived ideas from 1970.
Pigeonholing.
Things are different. Things are changed. The old buy the house, pay it off over 30 years is gone, is dead. You can do it if you want with the post-tax dollars, but you'll be battling away. You'll never move. Whereas you can build up now a property portfolio of highly leveraged, income-producing, tax-effective assets with a focus on paying down your own home. But you can have 100% debt if you want to on your investment properties until you pay your own home off and then start paying down your portfolio. And that's the new way of thinking. When I say new way, the last 10, 20 years and where people like us think. But that's the way to really create wealth. Get the bank's money. Get the bank's 400,000 or 500,000, put it into property, borrow it at 3%, rent it out at 4 or 5%, so it covers itself. Set and forget, and keep living your life.
And that's the thing. Like money's so cheap.
It's
like
so
if you have access to debt, like you have, it's crazy not to be able not be getting it.
You're getting a 4 or 5 or 6% return conservatively. And you're borrowing it at 3%. So
it's getting less.
Yeah, it's getting less.
Yeah, I remember.
But people worry. They're worried now. But with Hawkeye in the 80s, when he was
17.
doing the jug sculls or what's he got the record for in the world?
Oh,
the quickest yard glass skull.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, Bob Hawke. But it was 17%.
Yeah,
and people still managed through.
Yeah. When I bought my first property, my mum's like, "Don't do it. Just don't do it. You're 18, Tom. Just go do other things." And I'm like.
And how did that go?
But they were renting. They'd never owned a home, and I'm like, I've got to do opposite. So I did that, which I was lucky. But like fast forward now, COVID hits. Me and my brother just settled on a house next door to each other in Springfield, and when COVID hit, Mum's like, "Oh no, see now I'm worried." The house just basically had PC last week. My expected rent was like $460. I put it up for $500 online. Had an application the first day.
There you go.
to take it for 500 what I wanted. So it's just like, it's going to be all right. Let's just let the house be built through COVID. Whatever going to happen.
Yep.
So will be. But I've picked this area based on all these reasons. I now understand. The first purchase at 18 was a big learning curve. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yep.
So I cost myself a lot of money.
So Mum might have been right, but
well, no.
I'll never say it.
If I didn't buy a property, though, I would never have learned.
so really, it was a good thing.
It was a good thing because I learnt so much and go, hang on, something's right here. I just did it wrong.
Yeah.
And that made me research.
It's like driving the car and having an accident. You can drive the car and not have an accident.
He doesn't have accidents, do you, Tom?
Yeah, never had one. I just had my car getting fixed for the last 3 months. But anyway,
did you?
Yeah, I had my first accident.
Lucky you're good at property and building or something.
I'm good at something. But it was just one of those lessons that taught me a lot, regardless. And from there, once again, now I'm educated. And going into COVID, way worse times.
Yep.
I now knew a lot of the fundamentals. I go into it, everyone's freaking out. Everyone's like, even people saying this is what you'll get. I'm like, no, I want to put it up for this much.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go higher.
Yeah.
First application in, rented straight away. And I haven't even got the keys out yet. So it just shows
it's a good point. I think that you've just triggered a point for me here with what I hear from my clients. Probably the number one thing I hear from my investors is, Michael, what if we buy the property and we can't rent it out? And it's a good question. It's a very good question because that would be scary. If you've got $2,000 a month repayments and you can't rent it out for $500 a week, what are you going to do? Take a step back from that is something that's a part of our strategy and what we put into every strategy document we create for our clients is we have a buffer of 20 to 30,000. So that's about not maxing them out, like you said, Tom, earlier, with their borrowing capacity. So let's assume we don't rent it out. Very unlikely, but let's just say we don't. We've actually got up to 5 years interest-only payments covered, which it's not going to happen. It's not going to be vacant for 5 years.
Yeah.
But if you want to play that argument, cool. We buy it and we can't rent it. We've got you covered for 5 years.
Yeah, that's part of our strategy, de-risking.
Having that buffer in place.
Yeah. And if that's in place, that's very responsible, sort of way of looking at it. I don't know if many people would be sort of taking that sort of care and approach.
We make sure that we set that up. So it's either cash sitting there for the rainy day, and it's not to spend on holidays or handbags, or it's sitting in their offset, wherever we get them structured. And I think the financial structure, having a good finance team, is equally as important as buying the right property.
Yeah.
Because I see so many people come to me with properties, and I saw one the other day where they've got basically all their debt is on their own occupied property and they nearly owned an investment property outright. It's like, how has someone structured you like that?
Yeah, right.
You're not getting the right advice either from your accountant or from your finance broker. So it's going back to the original point for us here at our business. It's more about a financial outcome than Springfield or Brisbane or Melbourne or Perth or Sydney.
What's the facts?
That's right. The property is a vehicle to get us to where we want to get to. I want to get back to Brisbane after this for appointments. My car is that vehicle to do that. And that's the way to look at property when you're investing.
Now, mate, a lot of the old adage is, property doubles every 10 years. That's what, Australians just have in their mind. It's not the case, People often have a she'll be right mentality and regardless what I'll buy, it'll be double in 10 years.
Yeah, I don't think you can go off that.
No, it's not the case, is it?
No, I don't think
Definitely
it is. I think some will. I think we've seen Sydney, parts of New South Wales do that in the last 7 years.
Yeah.
Some of it definitely has when people said it never would. So, hey, it might surprise us again.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be, and I would never be saying that to any clients. It's like we can't rely on that. Let's rely on good, safe, slow, steady growth. At the same time, if we can, pay it down.
What rate would you use as a conservative figure? I sort of work off for my own 6%.
Yeah, I'd say somewhere between 5 and 6.
Yeah.
We've got a capital growth matrix that we use in our appointments, and we say, hey, John and Mary, if you build up a property portfolio of all these properties, let's assume 5 or 6% growth, and it shows them at the end of that 10 years the equity they've got. So I think that's a good conservative number.
And it's expectation management. I think if you're going out there and promising the world and delivering an atlas consistently,
it's going to catch up with you.
Correct.
And you won't be operating.
No, that's exactly right.
It's not going to work.
And I think having that realistic approach when you're speaking to people and saying, look, this is what can happen. We've seen it in Sydney, but look, let's, because I find it unrealistic. Again, we might have egg on our face in 10 years when Sydney's doubled again.
Yeah.
But we lose nothing by taking a conservative approach.
It's much better.
We gain everything if it goes better.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Assume that it's not going to go up a huge amount.
Yeah.
Albeit that history history says that it might.
Yeah.
But again, nobody's got a crystal ball.
Correct.
Yeah.
You go to the doctor, they say this operation we're going to do our best, but we can't guarantee that. It's a little
It's
bit
still
the
a
same with
tumour,
us.
yeah.
But if you look at the last 100 years, I think it's Australian property is the most blue chip asset, I think, in the world. We've seen all the Chinese want to buy it up. We've seen the restrictions the government have put in place to stop the foreign investment. We lived in an apartment in Rose Bay just before we moved to Brisbane. It was a $20 million house in our street. It was vacant
Empty.
for 3 years.
Yeah.
All good. I RP dated it because I can, and I saw who the owner was. And with all due respect, it was a Chinese name. That's fine, but you know what? It's kind of not fine. It's vacant for 3 years. It just seemed like such a waste. So I suppose what I'm saying is that people overseas see Australian property as even better than them having their money in the bank overseas, and they want to buy it. And we've obviously put the restrictions in place, but I don't think that's going to change in the next 100 years.
On that, I interesting to see on the back of the economic, we're technically in a recession, right? So it'd be interesting to see the government's interest or appetite for foreign investment on the back of this to bring money in. It's a short-term fix, not a long-term
Open
fix.
it up.
But be interesting to see whether or not they start allowing foreign investors back into the country like they did in 12, 13, 14.
Yeah.
Which, as we know, was one of the catalysts for the massive price increases across Australia through that cycle. So I think that's an area that I'll be watching eagerly to see whether or not.
I'm not sure they'll open it back up.
I think the Liberal government's probably a little bit too conservative to do that. I don't think they will. I think they understand the sort of long game a little bit more than trying to quick fix something.
I think affordability for our own people, with all due respect, I mean, we've got to look after Australians first,
Correct,
right?
absolutely.
I think affordability is a big thing. And for prices to be artificially pumped up like they were, I just don't think that was right.
Yeah.
And they're not getting utilised.
No, that's
such
right.
a waste. I'm living in an apartment next door. You know, we had some views of the harbour, which is great. This house is worth $20 million next door. It's like palatial mansion, and it's like not getting used.
Oh, mate, you go down.
It's not right. It doesn't seem right.
You drive down the canals in our boat or,
You know?
or jet ski or whatnot, and every second house is empty.
Empty, yeah.
And the only people you ever see in there is the cleaner who's cleaning dust, I'd only imagine,
Wow.
and mowing the lawns and keeping the grounds.
They need a good party in there. Make
That's
the
right.
most of it, mate.
Exactly. Now, mate, the 4 phases of investing.
Yeah. Well, there's a few different thoughts on this. Some say 3, some say 4. But to summarise, I think when we're in our 20s and 30s and even partly into our 40s, we're in what we probably call the accumulation phase. I want to get my first property, whether that's an owner-occupied to live in or is it my first investment property. I want to obviously get good returns and growth from that if I can. And from there, along with some savings, launch into my second, hopefully a couple of years later, and then build up. So your accumulation phase, I think, would probably it can go for 5, 10, 15 years where you build up your properties 1, 2, 3, 4. Once when I say hit a ceiling, but you get a comfortable level of properties that are potentially investment properties that are highly leveraged, income producing and tax effective. When I say highly leveraged, people might go, oh my God, we're borrowing all this money. I'm assuming that you might have your own home and the focus is to pay down that debt because that's the bad debt, the non-tax deductible debt. So build up your portfolio of investment properties, say till you're 50, for example, and then you might just be consolidating and then maybe paying them down. So paying the investment properties down as well, maybe from 50 to 60, and then you could be so that's consolidation is your second phase. The third phase being debt reduction. So you might actually sell 1 or 2 of the properties off in preparation for retirement so you can own 2 or 3 of them outright. And then live off the rent. You got 3 properties all giving you $600 a week rent. 6 threes are 1,800 a week. It's the best part of $100,000 a year. It's not a bad income to start.
It's a textbook sort of portfolio, isn't it? One property pays, the one person's, living expenses. Second pays the others, and the third one gives you money to spend.
That's right, and that's a good point, Hayden. Is that one property is not going to be enough. Even 2 properties are not going to be enough to help us into retirement. You really got to build up that portfolio, and we're lucky at the business. We've got clients either on a combined or single income of between 1 and 150,000, so not massive, either singularly or combined, and they've got their 4 or 5 properties and are retiring.
And I think people need to be aware. I don't know if people are aware that the government aren't going to help us in our old age like they are with current.
No. Is the pension going to be around for much longer?
No. Absolutely not. It can't be.
Who really wants to live off a pension?
Yeah, well, it doesn't give them enough anyway.
I mean, with all due respect to the pensions, I get some people can't help that. But if you can change that and you're not 65, 70 now, if you're anything less than that, younger than that, you can change it. And it's up to you to do that.
Yeah. You don't own a property and you're getting $400 a week.
Because the pension isn't glamorous. It's not, it's like $400 a week. It's baked beans and, these poor buggers aren't doing it well on the pension,
That's right.
And ultimately, people need to be aware that they need to look at income-producing assets to be able to sustain themselves.
Definitely. And I saw that firsthand with my lovely mum. My dad died 10 years ago from motor neuron disease, and unfortunately they didn't leave. Whilst he was in property, he knew the power of property. He didn't leave much for mum after, and basically if we didn't have the 4 kids looking after her and we built the granny flat, she's on the pension, but my sister's there to help and cook. So I've seen it firsthand. It's like you don't want to be in that situation when you're 80 because it's so hard. Our power years are probably, what are they, 30 to 50?
Yeah.
And even if you're 50, you've still got time. You can still you can't rewind the clock, but we can only affect what's ahead of us.
And your strategy would change, I'd imagine.
Yes.
You do a really personalised hand-on sort of strategy. Not every person's the same, opposed to me being a 25-year-old and Macca being a 50-year-old. You're obviously, differences in what you'd recommend in terms of options.
So liaising first with the finance team to see what's doable, and them then liaising with our financial planning team, especially if you're up at that 50 level of financial plan. If they haven't already got one in place, we're not here to take it off whoever they're already dealing with, but it is a service that we do offer. And so in age, debt levels, liabilities, assets, where they're at, where they want to be, is 10 years the time frame. Is it realistic? For some people, hey, it's a 12-year plan or whatever it might be. So I think the business where it's at right now is growing from just myself, and it has been me trying to do all things. But now we're putting people on, and it's getting to the point where we're getting a lot of good stories from our previous clients that it's helping us now grow and get more business.
And the referrals are coming through because it's happening. It's real.
That people, it's their son's coming through, or their uncle or their brother, and that's good because, as you know, with any new business, what do they say? Most new
50% or 80% of people go
especially in real estate, I think it's even greater failure rate. So we're lucky to punch through that 4-year barrier, boys.
Yeah,
well done.
And I think, you mentioned real estate, but it's not really what you do, is it? I mean, whilst it is, it's more sort of on the financial services side of things using...
Yes, I've got no properties for sale, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Using property as a vehicle.
I don't have vendors going, oh my God, why?
Yeah, I want 650,
and I'm not trying to find listing. It's very different to traditional real estate. Again, I like that. I like the individualized strategy for their personalized situation. We do annual valuations on all of our clients' properties to say, hey, Hayden, you bought that with us a year ago. Now it's worth this much. Even down to maintenance, we had some stuff up in the Pilbara where people wanted high returns. They were getting an 8% return, and we'd actually bought these properties for them off a builder that went under. So they got these houses that for just the cost of the land. So great investment.
Wow.
But the builder went bust, so we didn't have anyone to go back to for any maintenance warranty. But look, again, our team then got involved. We rang trades up in the area and got it sorted.
Well
so we're absolutely, and I know it's a cliche, we hold your hand the whole way through. For us, settlement or slab or keys when the house is completed, that's the beginning of our process. With our
and if you're getting valuations every year, you're obviously pretty confident in what you're recommending, because the last thing in 12 months is, in 12 months' time, I've got to get a valuation on that shithole.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. And look, we'll give them that valuation. And they've got a copy of it. But again, we've set them up. When I say set them up, we've been open and honest up front that property's a long-term game.
Yeah.
The property you buy today for 500 might still be worth the same in a year or two. But we've got to understand that it might be flat for 3 years, but then it may well have a spike for the next couple, and it's cyclical. And if, again, we look at the last 100 years. So
one of your favourite quotes I saw on one of your videos, "This storm too shall pass."
Yeah.
We're in a bit of a storm now.
My sister's my lovely sister is married and divorced and now got a boyfriend. One of her old boyfriends is what I'm trying to say. And he was in the SAS. And he was the oldest serving SAS. He was mad.
Right, okay.
I didn't get in his way. But I remember,
he broke her heart, but I couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, correct. I couldn't do anything about that. Right. Normally I'd step in and go, mate.
Normally I'd beat the fuck out of him.
What are you doing to my blood blister? But he gave me some advice many years ago, and I was going through a tough time, and he said, Michael, this storm too shall pass. And at the time, you're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through day by day, week by week? But then you step out of that and you go, it's true. Think of COVID now. It's a really bad storm. We're out on the yacht. We're batting down the hatches. We're going. I don't know what we're doing. We've turned the engine off. We're conserving energy.
We're seeing where we go.
Yeah, you know, like
we've still got a line in the water,
though. Some of us are still using the wind just to get ahead and just adapting to the conditions. And this storm too shall pass, and it will. It probably won't through 2020, but 2020, there's less than 3 months to go, isn't there?
Yeah, that's right.
So we're on the final stretch, and I think mentally, I was thinking on the way down here, I think this New Year's Eve for people, whether they're able to have a party or drinks or whatever, they'll have drinks, but like it'll be a mental thing to go, oh my God, we're through 2020.
I think so,
like 2021 is going to be wow.
Yeah.
So, I think that's going to be a big step. Let's hope Victoria can get through the lockdown.
Showing positive signs down there.
It is. Look, my quick take on it, I believe that COVID, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I believe that COVID is a thing, and it is a thing, and it is killing people. However, I believe our reaction to it has been too strong, and I think we shouldn't have shut the economies down like we did, because the effects that's having is greater than what COVID would have. And I've got an 82-year-old mum. I don't want her to die from COVID. But with all due respect, how many people under 70 in Australia have died from COVID? But how many people are dying from suicide every single day because of the economic effects of these shutdowns? And I'm sorry to get political, but Dan Andrews has gone too far. McGowan's gone too far in WA, and you know that's my view. We've got to get used to managing it, and just to shut everything down, it's been too extreme.
Yeah, and so they put other risk in place. The older people be more risk adverse about what they're doing. You can't just go out day and day. There's other ways to manage it.
That's true than just this blanket approach, because I feel for. I've got lots of friends in Victoria, and I really feel for them at the moment. It's been something that's just been on my mind every day, and I suppose it has for everyone. It's just they've just shut it down too hard. But anyway, we're not talking too much on politics, but that's my take on it, Hayden.
I won't get involved, mate. Finally, apartments in property. There's a couple of different. I mean, there's so many different property options in terms of types: apartments, townhouses, house and land, duplexes, dual keys, dual incomes, commercial. What's your take on it? You know, what do you think in terms of for your own portfolio or for your clients? Is there a product type that you think performs better? Yeah, good question. Look, we do some apartments for some people if they need that and that's their budget or it's a super fund or whatever. Look, but probably the best quote my dad ever gave me, and he's 40 years in real estate, he said, Michael, the value is in the land. And it's probably the number one thing you can take. If you can get a bit of dirt with a house on there that's going to give you a strong return versus the razzle-dazzle apartment, which might give you more of a return, inverted commas, but you're only buying the internal fixtures and fittings and the paint on the wall of the apartment and all of that. My view is get a bit of land if you can with a house on it. If you've got the budget, you could potentially look up to a duplex or something larger. But remember, the value's in the land, and that's my premise generally. If people's budget allows for it, obviously. Yeah, it's that. I think it's that Mark Twain quote. Buy land, they're not making any more of it. Well, that's true. That's true. I still feel though, if your budget's only 300 and you can only afford an apartment and you can get it rented and pay it down, that's still better than not doing anything at all. It does. It comes back to absolutely still better. It comes back to that assessing the individual circumstance of that person, because buying a property with their fundamentals of the research which we touched on earlier, is still better than not buying anything at all. Absolutely. Because the property will probably grow faster than you can save. Yes, it will. And you're getting the return, so it's paying it off, but you've also got that mental force saving. And I think it gives people a lot of satisfaction mentally that we bought a property, doesn't it? They go to their mate's house on the weekend and, hey, we bought a property. It's a good feeling. And so I think it helps with that, side of things. The force saving, I think most of us, I know for me, it's just really important. And gives people that mindset shift. It sort of takes you from, nowhere to now here, to use a love guru pun.
Well, that's true, isn't it?
Mariska Hargitay.
Exactly, Hayden.
Yeah, it sort of just gives them a little bit of a mind shift changes to get them, maybe if they're out bendering every weekend or doing that sort of stuff, it sort of brings them back down into the real world and gives them on the right track of doing being financially responsible. I suppose.
That's true. And I think before we finish up, one of the big things people often, when I say spin out about, is like if they've only ever had in their head to buy a house for them to live in their head it's, oh my gosh, we've got to come up with $2,300 or $2,000 or $3,000 a month, after tax income for our own repayments. They don't understand that when you buy an investment property, the tenant and the tax deductions that you get are paying for it. You actually get it paid off for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of people don't understand the amazing tax benefits that come with it, in terms of, it might cost you. But in Queensland, we're so lucky because even without the tax benefits, a lot of the time it's close to neutrally geared anyway. Maybe
strong
even,
yields.
like one of my properties, I think my repayment's $419 a week. My rent's for $420. That's before a single tax dollar comes
and then you can use your tax if you want.
Correct, exactly right. So in Queensland, we're so lucky on the back of the affordability. Mind you, this is still only 21 kilometres out of the CBD. I bought it for 400 and something thousand.
Amazing.
But people don't understand the power of that tax law that's in place.
Yeah, and obviously that's the negative gearing.
Yeah.
And look, just going back to politics for 1 second, that's the reason that Bill Shorten lost the election.
Imagine how
he was going to win.
Australia would be totally different right now if Bill Shorten was the Prime Minister. I touched on it earlier, and I don't like to get political too, but we'd be looking at the mortgage broker gone.
Yeah.
No more mortgage brokers. We'd be looking at negative gearing. Gone. Completely different Australia. Not to mention.
We said no to that. We said no to that.
Exactly.
But just going back to the tax just quickly, and we've done videos on it, and obviously not everyone follows our page, but if you're worried about your cash flow for an investment property, you can actually fill out what's called a tax variation form. Instead of waiting for the end of the year for you to get your tax back, you can say it's $10,000 that you're going to get from the new property with depreciation and all the costs and property management costs, all that coming back to you. You can actually, that $10,000, what's that, $200 a week times is roughly 10 grand. You can actually get that $200 a week back in your pay. So you fill out a tax variation form online at the ATO website or with your accountant, either or. The ATO sends that to your employer, says, hey, Hayden's got this investment property. Your employer then changes your taxable rate and pays you more. So you get, what I'm saying is you get the 10 grand back over that 52 weeks and to help you run the property.
Yeah, a lot of people, have that, think that they have to sustain it for 12 months and then they'll get the relief at the end, but it's not the case. That cash flow is there to enable or to assist them then and
That's
there.
Right. Yeah. That's
with
right.
the holding of that property. You don't have to eat baked beans and potatoes for 12 months and have a feast in July.
That's right. I mean, I should be just eating just potatoes. Anyway. But yeah, no, it's true. And look, most people's fear, I'll finish on this, fear is probably the number one thing that stops us in life with anything. It's fake emotions appearing real. Like you're fearful of things 99.9% of the time that are not actually going to happen.
You've just blown my mind. The FEAR.
Fake emotions.
Yeah, wow.
You're scared to ask that girl out because you think she's going to say no. Well, you know what? She's probably going to say yes. Yeah. So ask her out. You're scared to buy that investment property because you're going to go under. Well, you're not.
Yeah.
Because you're just not. Because worst case, the bank will understand. Anyway, buffers in place. All the stuff we've spoken about, but all the stuff that people are frightened of or fearful of, not just in property, but I find in life,
in general,
is most of the time it's fearful of nothing. They're jumping at shadows. You know?
Great point to end that on, mate. Thanks so much for coming in.
Tommy.
How do people get in contact with you and your team? What's the best way?
IPP Australia on Instagram, Independent Property Planners Australia on Facebook, or just ippaustralia.com.au, and or my fun page if you want to check what the surf's doing. Check out Pelican Surf Report on Instagram for a laugh.
Give us the 5-5-35.
Well, I'm a mad AFL fan, but if we bring it back on the Pivotal Home scoreboard with Hayden Ashton and Tommy Egan down here are we in the Gold Coast? It's 5-5-35 Pivotal Homes. And the other builders yet to score. We'll be back with more right after this.
Thanks, Michael. Cheers for coming in, mate. Thanks for everyone watching. See you later. Bye.